There is new Carnifex as of a week ago, and I'm very excited to talk about it. Why? Because here on the channel, we do extreme metal vocal analysis. I teach you all about crazy sounds like this. I remember listening to Scott do all these crazy sounds at shows and, you know, on like MySpace, I think it was, and just wondering like, how the heck does anybody create these inhuman noises? I remember sitting on my buddy's back porch, 17, 18 years old, drinking beers we weren't supposed to be drinking, smoking cloves we weren't supposed to be smoking. I'm not condoning drinking and smoking. That is my truth. That's what that's what I was doing back then, right? Getting into trouble. Some trouble. Stories for another time. Let's check out Carnifex, Roses and Rotting Corpses. I very much love that song title. 3 minutes, 27 seconds. Shorter ordeal. My interface has been acting a little weird, so let's cross our fingers and let's hope this works. I'm going to pause it there because we have a cool drum fill. So yeah, already this song is really sick, and I'm going to tell you why. There are a couple things here stylistically that I really like, and that I think certainly they still happen today. These are not like long lost songwriting techniques, but they are things that are to me always reminiscent of like that really strong sort of evergreen sound of deathcore, right? Some people call it old school, and I don't know that I agree with that because I feel like it's been ever present. Right. But it's this dichotomy, this back and forth from a compositional perspective of like mid or low and then high, back and forth, sort of passing back together. And of course, it's not always black and white. We've got layers. We've got things like this, but we'll have like, right, that back and forth. Right. And I think that's one thing I really enjoy, and I'll tell you, because it really creates sort of like a sort of marching cadence, and I think that's so fun for live shows. These are the types of vocal compositions where people in the crowd are going bah, bah, and chanting along, and I think that's a really strong way to start the song. Also, when it comes to the vocalization, one thing I'm noticing that's very cool is he's getting longer phrases. Oftentimes, when we think about extreme vocalization, we talk about the prime distortion mechanism, the main thing rattling around, right? The arytenoids or the epiglottis or whatever, right? Oftentimes our terms don't have really great ways of describing tissue rigidity or closure, right? We can close these tissues by different degrees. I can close just a little bit and do like a kind of a classic air dumpy, what's often called false chord. Right? I can lean in on it. Right? The way I do that is I kind of tilt things in, and leaning in on it is going to get you more longevity and is going to get you a lot of abilities to do these kind of cool, like snarly, like barky tones that we're hearing here. Let's keep going. And then I'll talk to you a little bit more about like actual like onsetting of these things, like starting these types of vocals. But so far, very, very cool. Let's keep going. Now, I know I'm pausing right in the middle of this, but that was really cool. So I want to kind of point out something that I kind of like. So when it comes to, when it comes to extreme vocalization, metal vocals, when it comes to metal vocals, sometimes we get two camps. We get people who they're like, oh, I don't like vocal gymnastics. It's just a million techniques slammed into one space. And then you get other people that are like, I love vocal gymnastics. Do as much as you can, as fast as you can. I'm here to tell you that I don't care about any of that. If it sounds cool, it is cool. And for me, I think the main thing I care about, whether you're going to be super gymnastic-y or whether you're going to play it a little bit closer to the chest, I just care that you're doing it with intention and you're doing it from the position of being a musician, right? And so this is the reason I want to point this out to you, because when we were hearing Scott's high vocals, and now I never know if this was the intention. I was not with him. I was not with him in the studio. This is just me interpreting what I hear. But the high vocals previous to this, and this is something that's really good to build contrast, were very out and very steady. So we had like this, like this sort of sound, right? And it was very, now in this spot, we hear a little bit more snarl. We hear a little bit more, we'll listen to it again. We hear a little bit more closing of the mouth. We hear a little bit more tongue moving forward. We hear a little bit of extra rattle with what sounds like it's from his tongue and his soft palate. Let me go back a little bit and let's see if we can pick it out here. Yeah, I'm not so sure. It's kind of hard to tell. It almost sounds like there's just like a little brief tunnel. And you hear that, right? That sound of the tongue and the soft palate gently sort of touching. That's a really good way. By the way, if you're looking to make your vocals wet, if it permits it, some vocals like a lower or they kind of require your tongue to be, they encourage your tongue to be a little bit lower, right? But if you're wanting to make a higher vocal wetter, right? One thing that you can do is you can let your tongue and your soft palate sort of dance around with each other. So if I go like, wow, you're not gonna be able to see it. My uvula is sort of flapping around on the top of my tongue. Sometimes I feel like my actual soft palate dipping down. But if I add that to a high vocal, you get some of that sort of like chunkiness. And I think it's really cool that it was thrown in there as a little flavor. I'm going to go back a little bit just because I feel like this transition in the center part is really cool. So let's go ahead. Oh, let's talk about that. Ugh. So this is I actually love this part of the music video for, let's get an actual image up here. No one wants to stare at a black. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So this is a really important part of metal vocalization that I think oftentimes doesn't really get talked about a lot, right? And it's basically like putting on this mask, right? So I'm going to show you something and then I'm going to explain to you how it relates to this. Oftentimes with students, what'll happen is they have an excellent tone. Their tone sounds phenomenal, but they haven't added any emotional delivery. They haven't added any face to it really. And so they think that it's not a good tone. Here's a really good example, right? If I do a lot of the lows that I do in Carnifex here, if I do like an like that sort of thing, right? Like some people don't like it. I think it sounds pretty cool. But if I take away the angry face, right? And the tongue and the jaw, you'll actually hear that it's not super thick, right? Right? And so oftentimes what'll happen is that people will be like, oh, I'm so far from doing amazing metal vocals. This is going to take me years. And it's like, no, like literally just pretend to be mad while you do it and see what happens. And in this music video, now listen, with music videos, oftentimes what's happening is the artist is lip syncing or they're actually doing the vocal, but they're listening to it like on a speaker system or with in-ears. So you know, it may not be an actual 1-for-1, but I'd be willing to bet that, well, I have seen Carnifex live, so he does make a lot of these angry faces, but you see how he's got this like sort of downward snarl, right? This, and I'm not talking about his head, I'm talking about just the shape of his mouth. Even little things like that can add body and add depth to your vocalization, right? I often tell my students to think of this less as singing and more as voice acting, right? If I take an even tone, and I say, "Hey, get away from my car," nobody's gonna listen to me. But if all I'm gonna do, of course, some things are gonna change in here, right? But I'm mostly gonna focus on my face. So I'm gonna, "Hey, get away from my car. Hey, 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 get away from my car." You can hear that it does make a difference. And then if we add, "Hey, get away from my car," now I'm going to add an interesting cadence to it. "Hey, get away from my car. Hey, get away from my car. Hey, get away from my car." I haven't changed my fundamental technique, right? This true chord phonation. What I've done is I've put on a mask of anger, and I've kind of started talking with an angry prosody, an angry cadence. And so when we do this, we can have something like, you know, or right? So there are also other things such as tissue rigidity and things such as this, but you really hear a lot of snarl. You hear a lot of that, like a sense of disdain. And a lot of doing that comes from literally putting that on your face. Another vocalist you hear this a lot with is Alex Tyne of Black Tongue and Aversion's Crown. Another really good example of this, but let's keep going. I'm going to pause right during the solo. Sorry. So he just did something really cool. He just did something really awesome that is a sign of a very experienced and a very technically talented vocalist, right? So at the beginning, and this is really cool. Actually, I didn't really think about this till just now. But so remember at the beginning of the song, how I talked about it was, here's your mid, here's your high, here's your low, here's your high, back and forth. Now he just did like this really cool blend, right? And I want you to listen, I'm going to go back. I want you to listen to the sound quality of the distortion. And I want you to ask yourself, how does this distortion that I'm hearing, or what does the distortion that I'm hearing tell me about the tissues that are rattling? Okay. Now I want to be very clear here. Unless you have a scope in someone's nose, from all the laryngoscopies that I've seen a lot of laryngoscopies lately. And let me tell you, one of the takeaways I have, obviously there's a lot of this research I can't talk about because it's other people's anatomy, and that's legitimately like legally private information. I can't come on here and tell you other people's stuff. But one thing I've come to find is that our ability to hear and say exactly, oh, that's 100% this, is not as strong as we thought it was. I have seen people, like for me, if I do like more of an arytenoidal distortion, and a more epiglottal distortion, they sound entirely different. But y'all, I have seen people where I'm looking at the screen, they don't sound different at all for that person, right? So it's like, you know, oftentimes when we're hearing these vocalists and we're trying to match their sound, we should be aware that we are doing as close of an approximation as we are able to do with just our ears. And also that's more interesting. You know, that's more interesting than trying to copy what that person's doing exactly. But I want you to listen to the quality of the distortion and ask yourself, maybe even pause the video and ask yourself, what does that tell me about the rigidity of the tissue? Let's check it out. It can be a little bit difficult to hear through everything that's going on. But generally speaking, the more floppy a distortion is, the looser the tissue, right? You can see this a lot. Let me make sure I don't have any coffee in my mustache so I don't spritz my monitors. That's happened in a couple videos before. But if my lips are loose, by the way, if you have trouble with lip bubbles, you can gently put your tongue between your teeth. Kind of helps. Sorry, now I'm just distracted by lip bubbles. Trying different ways. But if my lips are really loose, it's a really flappy distortion. Now I'm going to really tighten my lips. It's a faster, more staticky distortion, right? People who play trumpets can really like, you know what I'm saying? So when we have him lifting up and then offsetting, leaving some of the high vocals, like the high vocal at the very end of that phrase, for an example, is, well, in the body of the scream, it's, and then as he descends, do you hear how the tissue gets floppier? It's because I'm releasing the tissue and the vocal tract is opening up. One thing that I think is very important for us as metal vocalists, maybe when we start approaching the intermediate stage, right? So we've learned how to do whatever bass distortion we want to do. We can do little phrases with it, is to start thinking about our vocalizations as very fluid, very dynamic, not always being locked into one place, right? And so you can actually play around with this. One of my favorite ways to have students play around with this is actually with Cargria, right? And if everybody asks me how to say Cargria right. Do I look like I know how to say Cargria right? Look at me. Do I look like I'm from the beautiful fields of Mongolia? Hell no. I say it with a very Arizona American accent. That's just what it is. You know, I don't even know if I know how to say it properly. If I did, I would shoot for the 75% rule, which I'll tell you about another time. But basically, we take this Cargria and we treat it, again, not as a singing technique mentally, not as a singing technique, but as a speaking technique, a voice acting technique. So if I talk like this, I kind of sound like someone who, like, you know, maybe has been smoking for a long time. I don't know if smoking for a long time actually makes your voice sound like this, but that's often what we equate it to, or I can sort of lean in on it and make it Randy Savage. Hey guys, what's going on? And you can hear how the quality of the distortion changed, because with the first one, it can make your spit very foamy, by the way. Don't worry about that. If it's just foamy spit up in the back of your mouth and kind of back here, it's literally just because your tissues are rattling around and like sort of frothing up your saliva. That's why. Being very hydrated can help mitigate some of that. But anyway, you can hear how over here, ooh, you're gonna get really chunky. You're gonna get a really chunky distortion. But if I take this Randy Savage, right, and I sort of talk like this while I'm doing Cargria, up into the face, not down into the throat, up into the face. If I sort of talk like this Randy Savage, this Randy Savage kind of voice, it's gonna become a little bit tighter. The rate of distortion is gonna change, right? You can tilt in your upper glottis, you can add vocal folds, you can do whatever you want, right? Whatever you want. And so when vocalists slide through these different positions, it's not just, oh, they're rattling this body part. Oh, they're rattling this body part. They are rattling multiple body parts and changing the tensility, the rigidity of those bits. And it's really fascinating, right? So keep an ear out for that. Let's see if he does some of that again. Listen to the rate of distortion, right? Kind of take yourself out of music enjoyment phase, unfortunately, and put yourself in analytical phase and analytical state of mind, and ask yourself, is the distortion chunky or is it staticky? What does that tell me about the amount of closure that the vocalist is likely doing? Just for your own analysis muscles. I really like some of the layering that we're hearing here. I really like some of the layering that we're hearing here. Anytime I mention layering, I like to quickly mention, because there's always this very small amount of people who think it's cheating. It's not cheating. You do whatever you want. Literally, well, maybe not literally, but my take on metal vocalization is, unless the cops show up at your door, unless the FBI is kicking it down, you do whatever the hell you want. You do. Mark, what's cheating in vocals? I don't give a fart. Just make cool shit and have fun making cool shit. Layering vocals sounds sick. Layering vocals sounds sick, and it can be really smart too. So what we had Scott doing like these higher, brighter tones, right? These higher, brighter tones, which were really powerful. And then at the back, it sounded like, now it was pushed really far back, so it was hard to tell exactly what the distortion was, but it sounded like we had almost that, like, again, fundamental false chord sound, right? This, like, you know, A, B, D, C, A, D, B, O, J, B, A, like that sort of sound right there, which is like such a fun sound to play around with. I remember when I first started doing this vocal coaching thing, that sound had kind of fallen out of vogue. I need to drink more water. I'm getting a lot of that really foamy spit up in the back of the mouth, and it's making me have to swallow all the time. If it's mucus kicking up from your throat, that's when you need to be kind of like, I'm putting too much pressure. But if it's literally just foamy spit in the back of your mouth, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it if that happens to you. But when I first started doing this vocal coach thing, that this sort of, like, you know, radical lapse to the bank style grade had kind of fallen out of vogue a little bit, and now, like, it's kind of coming back, and I'm so glad, because I love a chunky vocal, y'all. I love the TV static stuff. They're like it's so sick. I love it. I hear it. I say wow. But like, give me a vocal that sounds like a bunch of rocks rolling around in mud. That's what I want. At least for your mids and lows. And it sounds so sick here. And he had these layers down on the back, really filling out the section, right? Because that's what we want to do. We don't want to have a empty, yucky mix. I mean, you can, like I said, you do whatever you want. But these high vocals, right, they're occupying a very bright space. And so it can kind of feel empty underneath unless you have something thicker, you know, underneath. And we had that, right? We'll see if he does it again. How much time? I got a salt lamp in front of my monitor, so let's see. Oh, we're almost done. Yeah, we got like less than 20 seconds left. Let's let's go back, because I really want you to listen to that, because, you know, another really important part of being a vocalist isn't just being able to do tones, it's being able to track vocals. And these days, a lot of us track ourselves at home, right? So just listen to those layers. Hopefully, if you're watching on a cell phone through your cell phone speaker, it may not come through. But if you've got headphones, if you have headphones, put them in now, your AirPods or whatever. But let's keep going. Yeah. Now, I don't have a way to know how loud he is in person, because I've never, well, other than like shows when I was younger, and then I saw them on a couple tours in the past few years. I don't really have a way to know how loud he is actually. But one thing I will say is, I think the word he's saying is serpentine. Whether it is or not doesn't matter. But listen to how much, like, over the top of the cane. Hey, Mark, you should probably explain what that means. I will. So if we think about our vocal tract, and this is not something I made up, this has been around for a while, we can kind of think of it as like a candy cane or a shepherd's cane, right? So our airway, so we've got our trachea, and then we've got our larynx with all these delicious floppy tissues. Then we've got the back of the mouth called the pharynx or the oropharynx. And then it comes up to like the sort of either the roof of the mouth, or it can branch up into the sinuses and out the nose. So it's got kind of like whoop, this sort of thing. And one of the biggest mistakes new vocalists make is they aren't aware of that shape, or they don't really think about it, and they think about pushing their vocals out of their throat or out of like the bottom of their mouth. Even a lot of low vocals, I personally visualize them. Yeah, I'm getting too in the weeds with my own. I'm doing self-analysis, right? But I push almost everything I do up this way. And so when he says serpentine, let me listen to it one more time to make sure I approximate it decently. But check it out. I think I didn't go back far enough, although those highs sounded sick. Let me go back a little bit. There it was. There it was. Ooh, that sounds so good. That sounds so good. No surprise, but Serpent. Do you hear how he closes down? That's sick. That's really cool. That might be my favorite part of the song. Maybe he's saying turpentine, but yeah, that's really cool. So one thing I really like is when people hold on to when doing metal vocals, right? If you have, this is just a personal preference, but if you have a word like, candle, a lot of times what we do is we give the most thought to the vowel, which makes sense, right? So people might go like, candle, candle. Do this sometimes just for fun. Hold on to the N. Candle, candle, a serpentine. Right? Very, very cool. So he's got this, and this is kind of impressive actually. So he's got this like downward pointed tone. A serpentine. And yet you can really hear that like up and over the cane sort of sensation. So that's fun. That's a fun thing. That's a fun little thing to try. So this is just me messing around. Feel free to skip ahead, but I'm going to take a little break to just have some fun playing around with vocal placement. So if I'm going to try to combine those two, right? And again, this is just me hearing it. Like I wasn't in the studio. So if I'm going to combine those two, the first thing I'm going to do, this is not always the case, but when I'm trying to have something that is a balance of the sound of multiple placements, I start with the brighter one and then try to slowly add the lower one. That's just kind of like what works for me. So I'm not gonna change vocal styles, and I'm gonna use this like very, again, false chord tone. The term false chord is in a state of flux, which I think is actually very, very cool, and I'll talk about that at another time. One thing that I'm not going to get too off on that, but what I will say is, mark it here, folks. When I use the term false chord, I'm using it more as a cultural term. This is something that the vocal coach and also YouTuber Tony Linka, he and I had a conversation about how we use false chord as a cultural term, because a lot of people call a lot of different things false chord. So when I'm talking about false chord, I'm not saying, hey, only your false chords are rattling. What I'm saying is we have a chunky, girthy, gross tone that has been called false chord for almost 20 years now, maybe over 20 years. And I'm just not going to be the person to like spearhead the fight to get people to change what they call it. Right. So when I say false chord, I'm more focused on communicating to a large amount of people than I am on being like, no, technically, right? So I'm going to use this false chord tone, right? I'm sure I'll change the tone. As the cultural zeitgeist changes, I will shift to match it, right? But I'm going to take this and I'm going to do it bright, overly bright. It's not going to sound like this, but I want to get that feeling here. Hey, that feeling. A serpentine, serpentine, Now, when I do that, I feel a ton of vibration on the hard palate, a ton of like very like vibration on the soft palate. It kind of feels like the sound of when you drive and one of the back windows is open and it goes like, it's like this very like kind of buffeting sort of sound. It's kind of irritating. And everybody's like, roll up your damn window, right? It kind of feels like that. Serpentine. Now, I'm not going to keep it there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to add some low end. Now, you can, but I'm not going to add some low end by dropping my larynx. Oh, because a lot of the brightness is coming from serpent. You can see my larynx going up, right? Serpentine. I'm going to do it with the front of my mouth. Is that how he's doing it? I don't know. I don't care. That's how I'm going to do it. Right? So I'm going to serpent. All I'm doing is rounding my lips and dropping my jaw. Am I pushing my jaw forward? Let's see. Let's have fun. Serpent. Actually looks like my jaw is hinging back a little. It's kind of hard to tell with the beard. Serpent. Yeah, it might be hinging back a little bit, but you can see the posture? Serpent. So what's happening is, what feels like is happening is all of this is postured. Upper larynx, I'd be willing to bet that the diameter of the top of my throat, the laryngeal funnel, looks like this, right? With the epiglottis, maybe not being a prime distortion mechanism, but being pushed down, the arytenoids coming in and rattling, right? Coming in and rattling, right? I'd be willing to bet that that's there creating high frequencies, and then my mouth is there kind of boosting the frequencies once they get here, right? So at least that's how I visualize it. That's how it feels to me when I do it. So serpent, over the cannon down, serpentine. If I was to cover this song, that's probably how I would do that part, and hopefully it would do it justice. Would it be the exact precise thing that he's doing? Listen, from everything I've seen over the past year, I don't think anybody's doing exactly the precise thing anybody else is doing. But I think it'd be close enough to do the song justice, and that's really what matters anyway. I want to hear that outro one more time. I love it. Oh. Outros are always my favorite part of any song. I don't know why. I love outros. It's just so great seeing everything kind of come all together. You know what I mean? Yeah, but that was sick. I think that's the first time I've ever talked about Carnifex on the channel. How the hell did that happen? Just watch. I have like 4 Carnifex videos and I'm an idiot and I forgot. That's possible. That's entirely possible. Your boy doesn't get much sleep. Between a 3-year-old and running the whole show, like who sleeps? Not me. I need to. But anyways, so that is Roses and Rotting Corpses by Carnifex. Really cool song. And I think it's so cool that a lot of these sounds that have always been there, but we're like a little less focused on, are now like shifting back, because goddamn, I love a chunky vocal. I love it. Right. So anyways, that's about that. If you like the video, like, share, subscribe, I don't know, all that stuff that we on YouTube are supposed to say. But again, I really want to reiterate, this is something that over the past 3 or 4 months has kind of become like a new mission for me. First and foremost, and this comes from teaching so many people, don't worry about being exactly 100% precise when you're listening to another vocalist. I have had students that could have been making amazing music 4 or 5 months ago if they weren't so focused, so dead set on doing exactly what this vocalist was doing, or exactly what that. Does it sound cool? Is it close enough? Then get on the mic and go for it, right? And then number 2, what was the number 2 thing I was going to say? Well, I don't remember. Oh yeah, and number 2, really when you're doing these screams, I kind of feel, I don't know, I feel like in the past year or so, how do I say this? Metal vocals have become a bit more of a craft than I wish they were, right? And what I mean by that is, and I'm going to make a longer video going into more detail, because this is a subject that requires nuance. But like, I've seen a trend. I give a lot of lessons. I try to keep enough students to fill up 6 days a week every month, right? And that's not very hard to do. And because I interact with so many vocalists, that lets me see trends. I feel like I have, granted, that's not a good sample size of the entire metal vocal community, but it is enough for me to sort of smell trends on the wind. And one thing that I've been noticing, and I don't think this is a good trend, is that there is like this pairing of a hyper academic desire, or this desire to approach metal vocals with hyper academic accuracy and like the rigidity of an Excel spreadsheet, but still not a lot of information to do that perfectly. We do have information on extreme or on vocal distortions. One of the most commonly used ones is Complete Vocal Technique, Complete Vocal Institute. It's free information on the website you can look up. But even that doesn't tell the whole story, right? And so what I have found is happening is a lot of my students, more so than they used to, especially new students, have this internalized belief that they have to achieve mastery before they start making music. And I am here to tell you that before 20, like back in my day, none of us did that. None of us were good when we started recording, right? We learned a lot by doing. And I think we have the potential right now to be in the best place that we've ever been with metal vocalization, because yes, none of us were good when we started recording, but we were also messing up and, you know, having a lot of vocal pain and all these things, right? But there was the benefit of learning our own voices through doing. So these days, what I want you to do, if you're an aspiring metal vocalist, or even if you've been doing this for a while, right? Utilize a combination. You know, there are a lot of sources out there for harsh vocalization these days. There's me and there's a ton of other people. Obviously, I think that stuff is good, but also pair it with doing. You do not need the approval of vocal coaches such as myself online to give you permission to start writing music. Granted, we never do that explicitly, but oftentimes I feel like people will watch content like mine and content like other vocal coaches, and they'll think that we have to do everything, or they have to do everything that we're saying perfectly before they get on the mic. Get on the mic. Get on the mic. Get on the mic. Open up your DAW of choice, get a beat up SM58. This isn't actually an SM58, but it looks like one. Get a beat up SM58 on Facebook Marketplace, download the free trial of any DAW that you want, and just start tracking. And when you run into, hey, this doesn't feel good, or hey, this hurts, or I can't get through these sections, or my guttural isn't as low as I would like it to be, that's when people like me are very, very useful. But you can just start. And I think that that's a good idea. Anyways, that's the end of my rant. Let's continue looking at metal vocals, you know, through a specific lens, bringing in some of that scientific curiosity, bringing in some of that craft, but also let's allow ourselves not to be so rigid that we're all sitting online in forums arguing to what degree, you know, this or that is rattling, and then months go by and none of us are actually making music. That's all I have to say. Great job, guys in Carnifex. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.